So it was 103 degrees today, and my brother brought over a really cool new camera. What's it called?
It's a Topdon thermal camera.
Okay, and so this measures the heat in different things, and I said, let's try it out on the Eaton, or also known as the Heaton on the Bullet. It's a ported Stage 4 Stegmeyer Eaton off of an 03 Cobra, and I know they got really hot, so we thought it'd be fun to go ahead and make a video about it.
And we'll put this on a time lapse so it doesn't take too long, but you'll be able to see the engine bay relatively cool, and then as it starts to heat up you'll see the different components like the supercharger belt, the radiator hoses, and all those things start to gain heat, and they will change color during this video, so it's pretty cool. And we're also going to take the car out and do some pulls and see the heat difference changes, and we're going to also have the intake air temperature and coolant temperature on my handheld device. And so as we get going here, look at that supercharger belt already starting.
And so together we're here hanging out afterwards talking about it, and I'll let him explain a lot of this too because he loves this new device. And so we can see the supercharger belt is already getting hot, right? That's the heat color in it.
Yep. So you can see parameters. This camera, the way it works, will show obviously the picture, and you'll have a graph parameter on the right hand side. So the very bottom obviously is the purple color, and it goes up in color gradient up to white hot is what it's called on the right. So at the moment, if you look at the right hand side, you can see it's 138 degrees and climbing at the hottest point, and then the coldest point parameter is 95, it looks like 96 degrees. And on the screen you'll see crosshairs. There are 3 crosshairs at all times. The middle white crosshair correlates to the very top left temperature. That's 110 right now, almost 111. That, anytime the white crosshair in the center of the screen is pointed at something, you'll get that reading in the very top left. And then you'll see the next one down is max temperature 164, and that will be shown as a red crosshair, and that is pointing out at any point in the picture the hottest point. And then that's followed by the minimum, which you'll see a green crosshair, and it looks like it's kind of in the top right, middle right side of the frame behind the gradient, and that's picking up whatever the coldest point is, which is 96 degrees because it was so hot and this was in the shade.
So as you can see, look at the coolant hoses are basically a kind of a yellow color. That's the hottest points towards the top of the scale. You can see as the engine's warming up here, you can see what components are getting hot first. It started with the belt. We could see the supercharger belt starting to get warm, and now you can see all the coolant hoses are up to temperature. So now the engine is up to operating temperature, and we're going to take the car out and we're going to drive it to a location and see how hot the supercharger is just from driving about 10 minutes. And then we're going to do a pull in the car, and then we're going to see what the temperature change is, because we know those Eatons get hot and everything. And you can see you just put your hand there on the intercooler reservoir, and you can see it's still cool in comparison to the rest of the engine. So here we are out at the location after a drive. So I also plugged in my X4 SCT tool to see what the intake air temperature is and the coolant temperature. So the top one is intake air temperature, and that's what the charge temp of the supercharger is. That's the lower intake manifold basically. And so after a drive in 103 degrees and idling in the heat, it stayed at 174, and we hadn't done a pull or anything yet. So this is just the car out there idling and driving around. And so now we're gonna look at the heat. Now it looks like it's 180 degrees, 177 on the blower, where it was in the low hundreds to begin with. The snout is hotter, and I had told him I was pretty sure that the gear set in the snout was going to be a little bit warmer than the rest of the blower. But like you pointed out, look, the air intake in the back is still kind of bluish color there where the air is entering the engine.
Yeah, it's kind of created its own gradient from the cold air coming in, or relatively cool air coming in, the cold air intake, all the way to the back to where the front of the supercharger is the hottest. So it's kind of cool to see that physically, something we couldn't see with our eyes.
Yeah, so here's the rotor pack in here, and you can see there's the air intake. It's a little bit cooler in the back, and that's the air entering into the engine. So let's do a pull. So this is that same pole again. You can see there's an awful glare on it, but intake air temp was at like 156 or so, and through the whole pole it stayed about there, so that's pretty good. Now it is sucking in 103 degree air, actually even hotter because it's under the hood air. And so I don't really like, beating on the cars in the heat too much, but we were just testing this real quick, one pull. But 174 on D cell, looking pretty good. As we parked, then it was staying around 176, so that's actually pretty good considering that just at idle it can just sit there and do that after the pull. So after that pull, now we're looking at the supercharger, a little bit of a heat increase, but not by much, 180 degrees. And so it looks like it's about a 10-degree difference between the rotor pack when it's hot. Well, it was already idling warmish, and then after the pull, it gained another 10 degrees. So it's still hot, but you can see the difference there. So it's kind of cool to see all this. The engine block down there is nice and warm. It's over 200, probably. The coolant temperature was 200 something. So snout there 187, 193, so a little bit warm there, and this is a hot day, and so that was just kind of cool to see how this all works. And you can kind of see what parts of the engine are cooler than others. You can see the radiator hoses, you can see the expansion tank here for the intercooler pump. Even though it's lukewarm, it's still showing up pretty good. So there we go. There's a little idle there, and that's just after the pull. So kind of cool video. Now we actually recorded a little bit of driving in the car as well, and you can see how much heat there is behind the dash here. I told them let's see what the shift knob is, because everyone's complaining about the bullet aluminum shift ball being so hot, but it was actually not so bad. It was 113 degrees on the shift ball, but it was 140 degrees on the bezel right here behind where the engine and transmission are. So kind of interesting to see the heat in this area is pretty warm as you're driving the car around. So we're going to take the Corvette Z06 out now that my brother has. It's a 2016 Z06, and we're going to do a little bit with it as well. So this was after driving the car. Now the hard part is you can see the top is kind of the lighter blue purple color because that's where the intercooler is. The rotors are actually down in the valley on this. It's a blow up design supercharger, so not as easy to see the heat of the supercharger because it's also right next to the block. So it's looking like 140 degrees, 100, somewhere around there. So 167, and kind of hard to target that, but it was kind of fun to see down in there. That's where the rotor pack is going to be. And so 185, that's about right. So the intercooler is working good. It's a, the top mount one like that, so that's pretty good. And so now here we are after the pull, and we'll look around for the little differences here. And so compared to the 152 degrees it was before, it's roughly about the same, 100, maybe a couple degrees difference, but and of course that's on top where the intercooler bricks are, so it's really reading more of what the intercooler fluid is doing. Now, as we walk to the back of the car, you can see the brake rotors are hot, and you can see the exhaust is getting up to about a max of 342, 355, so pretty hot exhaust. That's why you don't want to go grab the exhaust tips after driving the car. You let them all cool down. I even don't put a car cover over my exhaust tips to make sure that they're cooled down after the, you know, I wait till the car is cooled.
So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. It was just fun to go out and play around with our cars and a new device and get to see where the heat in the engine is and the supercharger and how much of a change there is and stuff. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and stay tuned for more Mustang content.